Tolu then sat in the dimly corner of her hut, her frail body trembling with weakness. The infection had worsened, and the stench of decay clung to her like a curse. She could barely recognize herself anymore. The once beautiful girl who had turned hers was now a shadow of her misery. Her parents tried their best to care for her, but she could see the pain in their eyes. They had lost everything because of her selfish decisions, and now they were forced to watch her slowly waste away. She could not take it anymore. One evening, after her mother left a plate of untouched food beside her, Tolu made her decision. She had nothing left. No future, no health, no happiness. The villagers despised her. The men who had once chased her now avoided her. And her parents had lost their livelihood because of her foolishness. What was the point of living in such shame and suffering? She waited until nightfall, listening to the distant voices of villagers preparing to sleep. When all was silent, she forced herself up, her legs wobbling under her frail weight. Every step was a struggle, but she did not stop. She wrapped a thin scarf around her nose to block out the undesirable stench of her own rotten flesh, then slowly walked out of the hut. The night was dark, the only light coming from the half moon in the sky. The village was quiet, and the only distant sound of crickets filling the air. Tolu made her way towards the thick forest beyond the farmland. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she did not turn away. She had made her choice. Reaching a large tree with strong branches, she untied the rope she had hidden under her tattered wrapper. It was an old rope, one she had found near the farm where her father once worked. She struggled to throw it over the branch, her weak arms barely able to lift it up. It took 3 trials before she finally managed to secure it. Her breathing was ragged, her body trembling from exhaustion, but she did not stop. As she tightened the noose around her neck, tears streamed down her face. Memories of her past flashed before her eyes. The days she had spent laughing with her friends before turned their backs on her. The night she sat under the dim glow of a lantern, searching desperately for ways to change her body. The moment she betrayed her parents by selling their land. The admiration she had basked in after her transformation. The moment all came in crashing down. She saw the pain in her heart greater than the pain in her body. I just wanted to be loved, she whispered into the darkness. I just wanted to be accepted. Her hands trembled as she prepared to take her final step. Then a voice called through the silence. What are you doing? Tolu gasped, her body freezing in shock. She turned her head slowly and saw 2 figures standing a few feet away. One was an old farmer, his wrinkled face twisted in disgust as he covered his nose. The other was a younger man, tall and strong, his eyes filled with concern. The old one took a step back. Kola, let's go. She's carrying a disease. Stay away. But the young man, Kola, did not move. He stepped forward instead, his eyes never leaving Tolu's face. Why are you doing this, Abeni? He asked softly. Tolu's throat tightened. No one had called her that name in a long time. It was a name meant for someone cherished, someone loved. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I have nothing left. Kola studied her for a moment, then held out his hand. Calm down, let's talk. Tolu hesitated, the rope still tight in her grip, but there was something in Kola's eyes, something she had not seen in a long time. Kindness, and in that moment, for the first time in forever, she felt a tiny flicker of hope. Tolu stood frozen, her body trembling, as she stared at the young man before her. The noose was still tight in her hands, her fingers clutching it as if holding on to the last piece of her broken life. She was ready to end it all, ready to escape the suffering, but now someone was standing in her way. Kola's father took another step back, his face twisted in disgust. The stench coming from Tolu's decaying flesh was unbearable, filling the night air with an overwhelming foulness. Kola, let's go, the old man said sharply. She carries a disease. If you go near her, you might bring death upon yourself. But Kola did not move. His eyes remained fixed on Tolu, filled with something she hadn't seen in a long time. Concern. He was not disgusted. He was not afraid. Instead, his face showed curiosity, even compassion. Abeni, he said softly, taking a cautious step forward. Tolu's breath caught in her throat. That name, Abeni, it's been long since anyone had called her that. It was the name her mother used when she was a child, before everything fell apart, before she made the mistake that ruined her life. Tears welled in her eyes. Don't call me that, she whispered. Kola ignored her protest. What are you doing here, all alone in the night? His voice was gentle and patient. Tolu's fingers tightened around the rope. I don't want to live anymore, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I have nothing left. No one cares for me. No one wants me. Kola took another step forward. That is not true. If no one cared, I wouldn't be standing here. Tolu shook her head. You don't understand. I ruined everything. I hurt the people who loved me. I made the biggest mistake of my life. And now I need to suffer for it. I deserve it. Kola studied her for a moment. Tell me what happened. Tolu hesitated. No one had asked her before. The villagers only whispered about her, judging her without knowing the full story. The man who had once admired her had vanished, leaving only cruel words behind. Her parents thought that they still cared for her. We were too broken by her betrayal to speak about the past. And now, this was the stranger, asking her to share her pain. She looked into Kola's eyes and saw something unfamiliar. Kindness, real kindness, not the false admiration of the men who had pursued her, not the judgment of the villagers, not the disappointment stares of her parents. This felt different. This was indeed different. For the first time in years, Tolu felt the urge to speak, to tell the truth. Her lips trembled as she whispered, I just wanted to be beautiful. Kola's eyes softened, but he said nothing. He waited, giving her the space to continue. I was too thin, she went on. No one wanted me. The men only used me and left. The women laughed at me. I thought if I changed myself, they would love me. I thought it would make me happy. She took a shaky breath, the words pouring out of her, as if they had been locked inside for too long. I stole from my parents. I sold their land. I left for the city and had surgery. When I came back, everyone admired me. I had the attention I always wanted. But then, everything fell apart. The surgery went wrong. My body. She choked on the words, fresh tears streaming down her cheek. I smelled like death. The men disappeared. The women mocked me even more. My parents lost everything and now I'm a burden to them. I have no one. She sobbed, her body shaking violently. I just wanted to be loved. Silence filled the forest. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if listening to her confession. Kola finally spoke. What if I told you that it's not too late? Tolu looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? What if there's still a way for you to heal? A way for you to live again? Tolu let out a bitter laugh. There's nothing left to fix. I'm already dead. Kola shook his head. You are not dead, Abeni. As long as you are still breathing, there's still hope. Calm down. Let's talk. Let's have a chat. Tolu hesitated. A part of her wanted to trust him, to believe in his words, but another part of her whispered, that was useless. What could he possibly do to help fix her? How could he fix something that had already been destroyed? But Kola's voice was steady, his presence unwavering. Please, Abeni, he said again, calm down. And for the first time in a long time, Tolu considered the possibility of choosing life over death. Tolu slowly loosened the rope from her neck, her hands trembling as she climbed down from the tree. Her legs felt weak and her heart pounded. She had been ready to end it all, to escape the shame and misery. But this stranger caller had stopped her. He wasn't afraid of her stench, nor did he look at her with disgust. His voice was calm, his eyes filled with understanding. She sat on the ground exhausted. Kola lowered himself beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Tell me everything, he said gently. I am a doctor. There is still a solution. We can't fix this. At first, Tolu hesitated, staring at the dead beneath her feet, but something about Kola's presence reassured her. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. She told him about the years of ridicule, the pain of being unwanted, and the desperate desire to change her body. She then went on to explain how she had discovered plastic surgery, how she had stolen and sold her parents' land, and how she had undergone the procedure in the city. Her voice trembled as she described the admiration she had received upon her return, only for it to crumble when the infection started. She told him about the unbearable smell, the oozing wound, and the people who abandoned her when she needed them the most. Kola listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When she finished, she wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked at him, expecting judgment. Instead, he sighed and said, You have suffered, Tolu, but you are not beyond saving. I promise you, there is still something we can do. She blinked in disbelief. You? You can help me? Yes, he said firmly, but we need to act fast. Your condition is serious. You need proper medical treatment, more than what any village herbalist can offer. I will help you, trust me. Tolu stared at him, her heart pounding. Could she trust him? Was it possible that there was still hope for her? She had nothing left, no home, no friends, no dignity. But in that moment, as she looked into Kola's determined eyes, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a glimmer of hope. What do I need to do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kola stood up and extended his hand. Come with me, I will take you to my hospital. We'll figure out this together. With hesitation, then determination, Tolu reached out and took his hand. Kola did not hesitate. He looked at Tolu. who was trembling and weak, her eyes filled with despair. The foul smell surrounding her was unbearable, but he did not flinch. He saw beyond the rotten flesh, beyond the mistake she had made. He saw a girl who had lost her way, a girl who still needed a chance to live. With urgency, Kola carried her into his father's cart. His father hesitated, covering his nose and shaking his head. Kola, are you sure? This girl has sickness. It could be dangerous. I cannot leave her here to die, Baba. Kola said firmly she needs help and I'm the only one who can give it to her. The journey to the hospital was long and difficult. The stench from Tolu's decaying flesh filled the air and Kola's father could barely breathe. But Kola stayed close, holding Tolu's free hand, whispering words of comfort. When they arrived, the nurses recoiled at the sight of her. The head doctor examined Tolu and sighed heavily. Her condition is critical. The infection has spread too deep. If we do not act fast, she won't survive. Kola's heart pounded. What can we do? The doctor shook his head. We do not have the equipment for this level of surgery. She needs special treatment abroad. Tolu's parents arrived soon, breathlessness and worried. Her mother fell to the knees crying, please save my daughter. I will do anything. But there was nothing they could do. The cost of treatment abroad was overwhelming. Tolu's father bowed his head defeated. We have nothing left. Our land is gone. We cannot afford this. Tolu sobbed softly. Then it is over, she whispered. I will die. Kola clenched his fist. He refused to accept that. He had spent years studying medicine to save lives, and he could not let Tolu's life slip away. Without hesitation, he made the biggest decision of his life. He emptied his savings. He borrowed money from friends, from colleagues, from anyone who would listen to him. He sold his car. He even considered selling his father's farmland, but his father stopped him. You are already doing enough, my son. Do not sacrifice everything. Still, it was not enough. The deadline to move Tolu for treatment was fast approaching. Kola reached out to an old professor who had once offered him a research position in another country. Sir, I need help, he said desperately. I have a patient. Her condition is critical. She will die fast if I do not act now. The professor, though skeptical, agreed to speak to the medical board. Days passed and anxious waiting. Then the call came. Kola, they have agreed. They will take her in as a special case, but you must get her here within the next 2 weeks. Kola exhaled deeply. The battle was not yet over. He still needed to arrange travel, medical papers and permission. He barely slept, barely ate. He was a man on a mission. Finally, the day arrived. With the last of his resources, Kola secured everything needed. Tolu, weak but hopeful, was carried onto the plane. She clutched his hand, tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this? She asked. After everything I have done. Kola smiled gently because every life is worth saving, Tolu, no matter the mistakes of the past. As the plane soared into the sky, a new chapter began. The race against time was not yet over, but for the first time in a long while, Tolu had hope. Tolu lay on the hospital bed, her body weak but healing. The surgery abroad had been successful, removing the infected implants and treating the severe infection that had once threatened her life. The doctors had worked tirelessly to save her, and now, for the first time in months, she could breathe without feeling pain. She no longer had exaggerated cause, but that no longer mattered to her. What mattered now was life itself. Kola sat beside her, watching over her recovery. He had spent everything he had to make sure she got the treatment she needed. The doctors had warned that it would take time for her body to fully adjust, but she was finally free from the suffering that had once consumed her. Tolu looked at herself in the mirror for the first time after the surgery. She no longer was the curvy woman who once turned heads in the village. Instead, she saw a healthier version of herself, a woman who had survived unimaginable pain and loss. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not of sorrow. They were of gratitude. She had been given a second chance at life. As weeks passed, Tolu regained her strength. Kola made sure she had the right nutrition, guiding her through a new lifestyle, focused on health rather than appearance. With a balanced diet and proper exercise, her body transformed naturally. She was not excessively curvy, but her figure was now proportionate and healthy. She realized that her true beauty was not in how she looked, but in the strength she had gained through her experiences. One day, as she sat in the hospital garden, she turned to Kola and asked, why did you do all this for me? I was a stranger, yet you sacrificed everything. Kola smiled gently because I saw more in you than just your past mistakes. I saw a woman who deserves another chance. We all made bad decisions, but we should not let them define us. Tolu wiped her tears and nodded. She had spent so long trying to prove her worth to others, only to realize that the only validation she needed was her own. As she prepared to return home, she felt nervous. She had left the village as one person and was now returning as another. Would they accept her? Would her parents ever forgive her? Kola reassured her, promising to stand by her side. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time she was ready to face it with confidence. Tolu had learned a painful lesson, but it was a lesson that had changed her life forever. Her new beginning had just begun. Tolu returned to the village, no longer the desperate girl who once sought beauty through dangerous means. She had learned a painful lesson, and her heart was now filled with gratitude rather than regret. Her steps were slow as she entered the familiar dusty part of her hometown, her eyes scanning the place she had once abandoned. This was her home, and she was finally back here, forever changed. The villagers gathered the moment they saw her. They had heard rumors of her return, but few believed it until they saw her with their own eyes. She was no longer the exaggerated figure that had once turned head. Instead, she had a natural beauty, a glow of wisdom that radiated from within. Women who had once mocked her watched in silence, while the men who had chased after her now kept their distance. She was no longer an object of desire or envy. She was something greater. Tolu did not care for the whispers. She walked past them, heading straight for the small, humble home where her parents now lived. Her heart pounded as she stepped into the small house, the scent of burning firewood greeting her. Inside, her mother and father sat in the dimly lit room, exhausted from another long day of work. They looked up and for a moment they were silent. Then, without another word, Tolu fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. As she sobbed, her voice trembling, "Mama, Papa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I have done." Her father, now frail and tired, looked at her with weary eyes. "Tolu, you betrayed us. You took everything we had. How can we forget?" Her mother wiped her own tears, torn between love and pain. "You are our daughter, but the hurt you have caused us, it was too deep." Tolu bowed her head lower, her hands shaking. "I have nothing left to offer you but my heart. I was blind, but now I see. I have come to make things right. If you let me be." Silence filled the air. The village elders who had gathered outside watched the scene unfold. Then a familiar voice spoke from the entrance. "She has suffered enough," Kola said, stepping forward. Kola, the man who has saved her life, the man who has seen her at the worst and still giving her a second chance. He looked at her parents with deep respect, bowing slightly. Tolu had changed. She understands the pain she caused, and she wants to make things right. Let her. Her father sighed deeply, his hands trembling. Then he nodded slowly. "Come here, my child." Tolu crawled forward, resting her head on his lap, like she used to when she was a little girl. Her mother reached out, her fingers stroking Tolu's hair. In that moment of pain, the past did not vanish, but something new replaced it. Hope. Days passed and Tolu dedicated herself to making amends. She worked tirelessly to help her parents, fetching water, cooking and assisting them in ways she could. But she no longer sought the attention of men or the approval of others. She found peace in the simplest moments, in the laughter of children, in the warmth of her mother's embrace, in the quiet conversation with Kola. One evening, her parents prepared a special gift. It was not wealth or grand possession, but a simple offering of gratitude. They carried baskets of fresh fruit and foodstuffs to Kola's home. Kneeling before him, her father spoke. "You gave us back our daughter. We have nothing grand to offer, but please accept this small token." Kola smiled, lifting them both to their feet. "No gift is small, especially when it comes from the heart. I did what anyone should have done. Tolu deserves a second chance." Tolu watched, her heart swelling with gratitude. She turned to Kola, her eyes filled with unleashed tears. "I will do anything for you." "Omo Kolami, you saved my life." Kola chuckled softly. "Then live, Tolu. Live the life you were meant to have." As she stood there, surrounded by love, Tolu knew that she had finally found what she had been searching for. Not beauty, not admiration, but something far more valuable. Tolu's recovery had been long and painful, but it also transformed her in ways she never imagined. She was no longer the desperate girl who had once sought validation in the eyes of others. Instead, she had found strength in herself, in the love of her parents, and most importantly, in the unwavering kindness of Kola. As the days passed, Kola visited her often. He brought her fruit, herbal tonics, and sometimes just his quiet company. He never treated her like a broken woman, never reminded her of her past mistake. Instead, he spoke to her like equal, like someone worthy of love and respect. And for the first time in her life, Tolu believed she truly was. The villagers who had whispered cruel things about her now looked at her with different eyes. They saw the change in her, the grace with which she carried herself. Though some still held onto their envy, many admired her transformation. Even the women who once mocked her curveless body now envied the natural shape she had regained through proper care and nutrition. Tolu had started taking long walks in the evening, enjoying the cool village breeze. It was during one of those walks that Kola joined her. They walked side by side, their steps slow, their conversation unhurried. He told her about his dreams, about his struggles to become a doctor despite the many obstacles he had faced. She listened, truly listened, and felt a deep sense of admiration for him. One evening, under the bright glow of the full moon, Kola invited her to a quiet spot near the river. It was a place he had always loved, where the water reflected the stars like tiny diamonds scattered across the surface. Tolu sat beside him, feeling a strange warmth in her heart. She had never known what true love was, but in that moment she thought she might be close to understanding it. Kola turned to her, his expression serious yet gentle. Tolu, you have been through so much, but you are strong, stronger than you ever known. I've watched you rise from the deepest pain, and yet you still shine. She looked at him, tears gathering in her eyes. I only shine because of people who did not give up on me, she whispered. He smiled, then let me be one of those people for the rest of my life. Before she could fully process his words, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Her breath caught in her throat as he opened it, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. Will you marry me, Tolu? He asked, his voice steady, filled with nothing but sincerity. Tolu felt her heart swell. She had never imagined that after everything she had been through, she would find love so pure. She had lost so much, but in Kola, she had gained something even greater. Just as she opened her mouth to say yes, her phone rang. He hesitated and then smiled at her. Omo Kolami, she teased softly. Pick the call. With a small laugh, he answered. The voice on the other end was urgent, excited. Kola, where have you been? Your name has been making waves. I submitted your research on rare reconstructive procedures to an international medical board without telling you. They were impressed. A global pharmaceutical company wants to expand into our country and they need a director for all medical branches. I recommended you. They want to meet you in person. Are you ready for this? Kola was speechless. He turned to Tolu, his eyes filled with wonder. See, even the world knows my Kola is special, she said, smiling through her tears. He took her hand and squeezed it gently. No matter where life takes me, Tolu, you are my greatest gift. Tolu knew that without doubt that this was the beginning of their love story, far greater than she had ever dreamed of. The village was alive with celebration. The air filled the aroma of roasted meat and the rhythmic beat of traditional drums. People gathered in groups, their faces glowing with excitement. It was the grandest wedding the village had ever seen, and it was all for Tolu and Kola. Tolu stood in her traditional attire, more radiant than ever. She was no longer the girl who had sought validation through her appearance. She was a woman who had found her true worth, and that made her more beautiful than any surgery could ever. As the ceremony began, Kola looked at her, love and admiration filling his heart. When it was time to exchange vows, he held her hands tightly. Tolu, you once thought that beauty was in the eyes of others, but now you know it has always been within you. I don't just love you for who you are. I love your strength you found in your darkest moment. You are my greatest gift. Tolu, with tears in her eyes, responded, Kola, you saw me when no one else did. You saved me when I was giving up on myself. You taught me that love is not about perfection, but about kindness and patience. You are my light, and I will always be grateful for you. The crowd cheered as they sealed their vow with a kiss. Elders gave their blessings, and their parents wept tears of joy. The once ostracized girl had become the pride of the village. Tolu's journey had been filled with pain, but in the end she found love, redemption, and a future worth more than gold. As the night went on, Kola whispered in her ear, are you ready for our next journey? Tolu smiled, as long as I'm with you, I'm ready for anything. And so their story became one that the village never stopped telling. A tale of mistakes, redemption, and the power of true love and self-acceptance.